Hello everyone, I have returned, though I also did an unscripted memories that not many people watched, much to my sadness, and an unboxing not many people watched, and a gameplay video not many people watched. So yeah, I've been demotivated with YouTube, but that's not the reason I didn't do anything this summer. The main reason, as I said in unscripted memories, which you should have probably watched, is that I ended up making this video later than expected because I had a bad summer. Stressful workload, lots of stuff to do, a big worry about my grandfather's health over the summer, which culminated in him passing away on August 8th. And since then I've been broken. If I may be perfectly honest, I have a phobia of death and it's very bad, and losing my grandfather just made it way worse. And because of that and my uncertainty of afterlife and whatnot, I just haven't been able to do much because I worry about getting hurt. And it's only until now that I've been able to slowly snap out and crawl out of the hole I was buried in. And so I got 2 scripts done. So yay, I'm almost done with season 3 of Eternal Memories. We have this episode and 3 more left. And season 4 is going to start sometime this year. I was going to do late September or October, but that's not going to happen. I may get episode 9 out in October, but I don't think I'll get season 4 started until November at the earliest. So as for the episode today, I'm going to talk about the Nintendo Game Boy Player. Now, why would I talk about the Game Boy Player, especially after a long break, when I want to shift a subject to another topic? Well, to be honest, when I considered doing that, I promised people I'd go over the Game Boy Player, and I'm going to go over the Game Boy Player. It's in storage, but I got some minor B-roll of the device itself, and I have lots of B-roll to how it actually works, so at least I get to explain my story with you. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to do a hiatus like this again if I can help it, but I'm going to be not as active on videos as I used to be, at least until I get back into a mood. I'm trying to work more on my website reviews, but I can't get anything done, I just stall. And I'm so mad about that because those are basically not necessarily my job, but like, you know, some games I should have reviewed a year or 2 ago because of being a backlog. I want to get those done. I have some of those reviews written, but I can't finish it and it makes me so infuriated. So I'm going to try and do whatever to get out of stupid what I'm in. And let's just get this video kicked off by talking about the Game Boy Player and why it was made, and how I got one to begin with. So, despite the Game Boy Advance's booming success in the early 2000s, the GameCube wasn't really doing nearly as well. So, Nintendo's idea on trying to help with that was by making a device that would bring the Game Boy Advance's audience over to the GameCube, since Pokemon Colosseum and 4 Swords weren't setting the world on fire like they hoped. Thus, Nintendo introduced the Game Boy Player, a device similar to the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo and the Wide Boy for the Nintendo 64. It could play everything a traditional Game Boy Advance could, which meant it had link cable, e-reader, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance support all in one, with the main drawback being the ability to play your favorite games on the TV, which was a pretty great idea considering how awful the Game Boy Advance's screen was, and how some games weren't even made for that low resolution and lighting in mind, and not everyone wanted to buy 2 Game Boy Advance systems in order to upgrade to an SP. I just so happened to be one of those people that didn't want to upgrade to an SP, and this was during a tougher period in my life, while I was living with my birth mother. I had a Game Boy Color at my grandmother's house, but my Game Boy Advance was with me at all times, and I stuck strictly to the original model until I got my DS Lite in 2006. While I did know of the existence of the Micro SP and original DS thanks to magazines and TV ads, I saw no need to get them at the time as I didn't even know what they were or if they even had a chargeable battery, which I later learned they did. And my mother didn't really feel the need to spend more in our already limited budget on a copy of the same system. Thus, when I flipped through one of my old Game Boy Advance manuals and saw the advertisements for the Game Boy Player, my 7-year-old self was excited. I could finally play my favorite Game Boy games in the dark parts of our apartment without having to use a light. So I proceeded to beg my mother for one, with my main intent being not only to play some games on the TV, but mostly due to a stupid idea I had about one of my games, which was the one I want to play on the TV the most. I'll explain how. So the main reason I was upset with Mario Party Advance is, to keep it short for anyone who hasn't played the game, it's not good. It's like not even as, it's somehow a bit worse and a bit better than Mario Party 4 and 8, which are my current least favorites that I played. And the main problem for me is nowadays the bad writing. But back then it was just the fact that it was not multiplayer focused. You ran around this board by yourself and did pass and play mini games and some weird gadgets that did nothing. You know, I used to think they did actually do something. And as a kid, I desperately wanted to find a way to do the multi-pack Game Boy link-up with the GameCube Game Boy player. Because I thought if you plug in the GameCube controller for 4 people, then of course it would do 4-player Game Boys. Because, you know, that makes no technical sense. That's what I thought it would do. And since I didn't want to feel ripped off because of Mario Party Advance, that's why I begged my mom to let me get a Game Boy player. But I had to do something drastic in order to get my Game Boy player because we didn't have much money. And as I said in other videos, my mom would use to pawn games of mine without permission, which wasn't cool. And I'm still mad because I still lost some stuff like Mario Kart Double Dash and Smash Melee over it. But this was actually the one time I did sell my games voluntarily with her. And it's because I wanted this Game Boy player super badly. So, because I had to get some way to gain the Game Boy player, I had to save up some games I didn't want to play anymore because I already beat, and I sold them to a local game store, I believe. Not GameStop, it's a local game store that we had. Because they had a Game Boy player in stock with a disc. So me and my mom went with a big stack of games, and I can't remember all of them. All I know is that the ones that hurt me the most were Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, because I completed that game, I wanted to keep it. And Pokemon Blue. I had Red and Yellow, but I wanted Blue because I like the color palette, and I didn't even beat that game. So I actually had to get rid of Pokemon Blue forever because of, well, getting the Game Boy player. I think Pokemon Blue is what gave me most of the value for the thing. And I believe I also sold Legacy of Goku, because that game was poop and I somehow beat it as a kid as well. And the rest of the games I don't even remember. They probably were stuff I didn't care about or stuff I did care about and just forgot. So yeah, those were the games I sold, and I don't think I actually made enough money with those games alone. But whatever my mom did to get the rest of the money, we got enough money for a Game Boy player. So I took it home, plugged in my Mario Party Advance cart, and, well...
In the end, it's the exact same as playing on the Game Boy Advance screen. Meaning I'm stuck with the pass and play modes for multiplayer, and there's no multi-pack magical support of the controllers. Needless to say, having my main reason for buying this accessory to begin with be a complete disappointment and fabrication in my head made me really sad for a day or so. The fact that my Pokemon Blue, Mario & Luigi, and several other Game Boy Advance games were just gone to the wind so I could maybe get Mario Party Advance to be something it couldn't do, it ended up really hurting me. And I stopped playing Mario Party Advance for a while because of that. Yeah, it's easy to play the bonus board and pass and play games on the TV since you have an actual way of seeing the screen better than huddling around on Game Boy Advance, but the fact that my mother didn't even want to play with me in the end about, well, left to those benefits being no. Thankfully, I remembered not too long after the incident that I could put any Game Boy game into this thing, including Game Boy Color games, and so I was like, wait, I love Pokemon, so why don't we just play that? And so I popped in this very same Pokemon Gold card that I'm showing off right now, and then I was off to go as my journey to Johto was on the big screen as my go-to way of playing Pokemon at home. And so, that's the story of how I got my original Game Boy player and made the most of it. Unfortunately, while I did take my Pokemon games with me when I was relocated to my grandparents' place, my Game Boy player was at my mom's since I already had a separate GameCube at my grandparents and saw no need for it. I was also more concerned with keeping my memory cards safe than anything else at the time. I did get to go over and visit her every now and then and show off my new Game Boy Advance collections and play on the TV, but eventually when we split ways for a bit in 2012 I never came back to her place again, and since then I never could use the Game Boy player. So how do I have all this B-roll footage on display right now? Well, I ended up buying another Game Boy player because when me and my mom reconnected on neutral terms, I asked her if she had the Game Boy player still, but she didn't seem capable of finding it or the disc, and whether it got sold off or lost in some sort of attic, I have no idea. But I ended up getting one for myself from an eBay auction, and the Game Boy player is sort of expensive to begin with, but the actual device is pretty uncommon. However, the disc is very expensive, and you cannot use the Game Boy Player without disc unless you use some sort of action replay device, and I don't have any interest in doing so. Luckily, once you pop in disc, the software loads up immediately along with any Game Boy Advance game that's loaded into the slot. The controls match button for button on the GameCube controller, so there's no any problematic issues with controlling the game, as it's fairly easy, save for a few motion-based games that you have to improvise around. You also have a few borders to choose from and some filters, so I found that none of these did anything for me personally. You can't remove the button prompt for the options menu no matter how hard you try though, so keep that in mind. Overall, this is a very fun device for playing Game Boy games on the TV, though since I learned the Super Game Boy 2 for the Super Nintendo, I kinda wanna import one of those for the original Game Boy library, since it has way more options and even some special game support with certain Game Boy titles that the player does not for some reason. There's nothing like that to enhance Game Boy Color any further though. We have Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, and Game Boy Colors just with the Game Boy Advance, and the Wide Boy was for press people only, so that's unfortunate.
And there you have it. I made the best out of a mistake I made, and instead of being upset about Mario Party Advance still sucking and now having less games to play, I had a reason to play the favorites I did have still on my TV. Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Emerald, and even Pokemon Sapphire and Fire Red were all things I could now play on the TV. Yeah, there was that Pokebox game, but I didn't even have it, even though I knew about it because of ads. And it was only sold in New York, and I can't even buy a copy now because it's somehow the rarest GameCube game ever made or something. So yeah, I have the Game Boy Player as my main way of playing Game Boy Advance games on the TV. And what about 2019, where there's been releases of all sorts of NES, NES, and 64DS and other stuff. And I've even recorded a bunch of those gameplay videos from Wii U on this channel. Well, I think the Game Boy Player still reigns supreme in most of those aspects, because while it's nice to play Game Boy Advance games in Wii U, they didn't release that many. They released a few Nintendo games, but cool stuff like Gradius Galaxies, which is one of the best Gradius games in my opinion, I can only play with this cartridge because they never re-released it on Wii U, and there's no Gradius compilation in them, at least at the moment. So because of that, there's no way to play Galaxies. Likewise, there's no way to play some cool games like Lufia Ruins of Lola, the Game Boy Advance versions of Breath of Fire 1 and 2, all those Game Boy Color versions of 3D platformers, and some of the early Game Boy gems like the Final Fantasy Legend series. I had to play the original cartridges, and the best place to do that is on the Game Boy Player. Though Super Game Boy 2 is still appealing, and I actually kind of want one for those old Game Boy games. But for color and advanced games, especially stuff like this, yeah, it's the Player. Even though it's blurry and it's not that pretty looking compared to a Virtual Console or Nintendo Online game, it's still, I think, worth checking out if you like the Game Boy system and want to play on the TV. Now there have been some like emulator systems like that Retron 5 that play Game Boy games on the TV, but they dump it on from the cartridge to the system memory and then do this weird thingamajig with the save data that sometimes corrupts it, and I don't want to risk that. Besides, I hate emulation-based devices like the Retron 5. I'd rather any emulation be with a download source or a compilation, not a console that could break on me. That's kind of why I'm thinking the Game Boy Advance Consolizer and that weird Game Boy Player Action Replay workaround may be the best ways to get a better picture from the Game Boy Player. But since I'm basic and I don't like using Action Replay, I'm just sticking with the OG Game Boy Player whenever I want to whip out some Gradius Galaxies on the big screen. But yeah, my hope is that Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games get proper HD re-releases in the future of 2020s. Because we got all the console love, and compilations are being made of all these console and arcade games, where's the handheld love? Even the weaker games, I think, should be re-released in some way, shape, or form. Even Nintendo didn't release all the Game Boy games for crying out loud. And the 3DS killed off Game Boy games in like a year. So yeah, that'll do it for this episode of Untitled Memories, where I cover the Game Boy Player, and I'll see you next time where I cover an arcade favorite of mine. Bye!